internet access.
So it's difficult still for the community that's digitally on the other side.
Yes, yes, but the world is shrinking real fast. The world is shrinking, and the satellite footprints are growing, and you know, the cell phone and the tablets are proliferating. I don't think that's an issue.
Then it wouldn't be long since you reach them, or they reach you.
Yes, yes.
Since you also talked about UNDEF being Secretary General's.
Yes.
Associated with Secretary General's office.
Yes.
I think it would be fair to ask you why Secretary General didn't come to Nepal.
Before I answer that question, let me just say something about the Secretary General and the UN Democracy Fund, if I may, because we've heard him speak at our meetings and on this issue a number of times. And you know, the Secretary General, of course, comes from a country where you don't show your emotions very much, but he's passionate about this issue of democracy, and he said in his speeches he saw democracy personally transform his country. He saw democracy transform South Korea from an authoritarian regime run by generals, a corrupt regime, to a democracy, a thriving democracy where there's alternation in power, where somebody has to win the vote to get ahead and so forth. And he said society has been transformed through this process. So he's a great believer in the work we do because of his personal example. The Secretary General and his travels. Let me tell you that I don't think any Secretary General has travelled as much as Ban Ki-moon, and he's tremendously fit. I'm amazed at how well he travels, and he always bounces back. And I think his ambition is to go to all 194 member states of the UN at some point or another. So he will certainly come to Nepal. And I also know just from his office that he's personally very keen to go to the birthplace of Buddha. And so he will definitely come to Nepal, but look, his program is constantly being pulled at by different forces. Come here, do that, big conference here, open this, and he'll find a good time. I'm sure it'll be this year that he'll come to Nepal.
Hopefully he does. We're coming to a close. You're a person who has a background in defense studies, defense and strategic studies. And normally, people related to defense and strategic studies are thought of as favoring military. And you are heading an organization that's for democracy.
Yes.
How do you balance that? Or
well, you know, Somesh, I've done a number of things. I was a lawyer, I was a diplomat, I've been an academic, and I've also worked on defense and strategic studies. But my job in that context was to basically help the senior people in the Australian defense establishment to deal better with policy issues. To get away from the battlefield ideas and the soldiering issues, to understand how the defence, how defence impacts on broader government policy and how they fit in with other things they do. So it wasn't such a radical transformation, actually.
Defence-related people are not anti-democratic.
They're certainly not anti-democratic, and you know, my experience is that defence-related people are very conservative when it comes to war. Very conservative. They want to look for every other alternative before they use force. And they're great believers in development and democratization to avert recourse to force.
So hopefully this thing continues and UN Democracy Fund continues.
I'm hopeful, but Somesh, you know, to survive we need contributions from member states, and I'll just make a final point here because it affects one of your neighbours. We have 2 major contributors and 38 other contributors, but our 2 major contributors are, it won't be surprising, the United States. It believes in promoting democracy, but our second biggest contributor that has given us $35 million to date is India. And India is, of course, the world's largest practicing democracy. They don't like the idea of doing things bilaterally, but they like the idea of supporting democracy through the UN.
So in a way, the largest functioning democracy is besides us, and we can get some help in learning the democratic practices.
India's a great role model. They have such a complicated society to govern, and it's a little bit like Nepal, I think. The only way to govern India is give everybody voice and see what comes in the end.
Hopefully the same thing happens. All the voiceless in Nepal also get voice. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
That was Roland Rich, Executive Head of UN Democracy Fund. We talked about UNDEF's role in strengthening the voice of civil society and participation of all groups in democratic processes. Keep watching Kantipur TV. Thanks for watching so far.